Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do, a podcast that talks about human development and psychology to help you figure a bit more of why you do what you do. And we left off talking about obesity, that, if you let your child become obese, they're more likely to stay obese and be obese as an adult, which can lead to, heart disease and diabetes. So, feed your kids healthy foods so that they can be healthy. Nutrition and oral health. Of course, we all know nutrition is important. You are what you eat. So your children should be eating fruit. They should be eating whole grains. They should be eating vegetables. They should be eating lean meat or a substitute. Some people are, vegetarians or whatever. So, they need that protein to grow their muscles and grow strong. Calcium is, important for children. Dairy. But most doctors say once you become an adult, you don't need to be eating any dairy. There's no reason for you to be. It just goes straight into your arteries. Then you're going to need to get you some vitamin K to get it out of your arteries and into your bones where it belongs. Oral health. You should be teaching your kids to brush and floss. When they get older, they can use mouthwash. I was told to use mouthwash when I was 9 by one of my grandmothers. And it was so strong and it burned my mouth. And so I was scared of it. Probably till I was in my 20s. I used it then, but I was scared of it because it burns so bad, So don't start them on mouthwash. There is kids rinse that my mom used to buy for my kids, little bubblegum flavored or watermelon flavored or whatever, that you can have them use to get them used to the idea, but you might want to not force your kids to use mouthwash because then they'll be scared of it and they won't use it when they get older. Sleep patterns and problems. Like I said, everybody's different. If you want your baby to sleep through the night, keep it, like I said, nearby. We had our crib at the foot of our bed. When the baby cried, we'd check it, let them know we were there, give them the pacifier, check the diaper, offer them food. Sometimes it just took a little rub on the back. They just want to know somebody's there. Maybe they had a bad dream. And like I said, my kids were sleeping through the night by the time they were 3 months old. And I knew people whose kids were 2 years old still not sleeping through the night. Now, yeah, they're going to have bad dreams. They're going to get up. I had one son who had night terrors, and he was seeing crazy stuff, and while he was half asleep, but he was also half awake. He was up and, oh my gosh, So, everyone's different. But there should be a bedtime routine. Say after dessert, the baths start. And then when the baths are all done, then you can sit and read to them, for a little while. And then, okay, lights out, time to go to bed. And that routine helps them to relax and to go into bed. It's not such a big drama. And kids are going to make drama about going to bed anyway. I don't know any kid who's just like willingly, unless they were just really tired, went and hopped in the bed. My middle son, he used to get tired from playing, ball and stuff like that. And he would like plop down in the bed and he would grin. You could tell he's ready to go. All right, let's get your bath and get you to bed. And sometimes the kids are going to want to come into your bed, especially if they had a bad dream. But you need to soothe them, calm them down, then take them back to their own bed. Because if you get them in your bed, then that's becoming a habit, and they'll feel like they can't sleep anywhere but in your bed. They want to sleep with you. Now, in some countries, that's a thing. In the past, probably, scientists believe that, cave people and early people, the child did sleep right there with them. But, in today's modern world, we usually give the child their own room and their own bed, and they need to sleep in there, so that we can have some alone time as mom and dads. We're not doing things in front of children that can emotionally harm them nowadays. So the child needs their own place to sleep. And they, you know, need to be soothed if they had a bad dream or they don't feel good, you know. But once you got them calmed down, you take them back to their bed. You know, you can rub their back for a little while till they go to sleep or whatever. But, you know, that works. And like I said, you know, my kids, other than, you know, being scared of things, it's pretty much we're good sleepers. Sleep disturbances and disorders. There's a bunch of different ones. You know, there can be sleep apnea. There can be, like I said, night terrors. Sleepwalking is pretty common in childhood because the brain is still forming. So, you know, like I said, night terrors where they're awake and in this world halfway, but they're also having these dream, you know, fantasy things they're seeing, you know, while they think they're awake, but half their brain is still asleep. So, you know, sometimes the brain wiring can cause problems as the little people mature. You know, and of course all kids are going to get frightened if they're having a nightmare. So your job is to soothe them and, you know, you know, if they're waking up from sleep terrors in a state of panic and they're freaking out. I used to have those as a kid because, you know, stuff that, you know, had happened to me, and in my dream, these things were happening and even worse things were happening. And so I would wake up and my heart would be pounding and I would be nervous, but, you know, I never would go to my parents because I knew there's no help there. You know, just get back to bed. So I had to work that out on my own. Calm myself down. Bedwetting. There is a small percentage of children who wet the bed. Boys actually do it more than girls. You know, it's about 7 times more. So your boy might be wetting the bed, you know, girl might be wetting the bed. And this also comes from the fact that children can fall into a deep sleep because they're growing while they're sleeping, the brain's being worked on, and your muscles relax when you sleep. So it's more likely that things might leak out when the child's asleep. If they're holding it in during the day and they're fine, they're not having any messes during the day, and they're peeing in the bed at night, that's probably the case. Now, some children have allergies, and that can make it, you know, if you're giving them milk before bedtime, that might be a problem, and that might make them do that. Or they could be scared of the dark and not want to get up out of the bed, and peeing in the bed becomes a more friendly option than getting up in the dark and possibly encountering something that they're scared of, like a monster or whatever. So that's something you just kind of have to deal with sometimes when you're a parent, and try to find better ways, you know, for them to get up and go in the bathroom. Night lights, give them their own flashlight. My kids had their own little flashlight. We had one that my husband just dug out of the garage not that long ago. It looked like a little dinosaur, and you pushed the light and it roared, you know, but they always had a night light, and we kept some kind of night light, you know, in the rooms of the house and in the bathroom so that there was some kind of light so that they could see to get to the bathroom and turn the light on so they weren't so scared, you know, to get to the bathroom at night. Motor skills. Our gross motor skills, which are, you know, our physical things, running, jumping, large muscles. That will help you to stay healthy as an adult. So when they took recess out of most schools, they did the children a big disservice because that might have been the only time they were getting that physical exercise. Children need to exercise, they need to play, and they need to build those, you know, large muscles so that they can be healthier in their adulthood. So that outdoor play is important. You know, I wish all the schools would bring it back, but I doubt that's going to happen. But, you know, take your kid to the playground, let them play, you know, let them use those big muscles, and then they will be healthier Fine motor skills, which is, you know, what you use your hands for. Buttoning, drawing, things like that. Those are important for school. So, you know, don't do everything for your toddler because they can't quite do it. Teach them to do it. Watch them do it. And praise, oh, good, great job, you got that done. Yay, I knew you could do it. And then they'll smile and be happy and want to do more. And these fine motor skills are important because they're going to need them in school. They're going to need them at their job. And if they have hobbies that involve, you know, using their hand coordination, they're going to need them in that. So, by encouraging them to do things for themselves with their hands and eyes, you know, getting that coordination going on, you're going to help them to be better performing adults. Artistic development. Some children are artistically inclined, some are not. Most kids do like to draw pictures and things like that. Now, our job is to not judge the quality, in our opinion, of their work. I know parents who are, oh, you should have done this. No, that's terrible. Don't do that to your child. It looks great. Because art is subjective anyway, and they created something. You should love it just because they created it. You know, my little person created that. I love it. You know, that's just how I felt about it. So, you know, encourage that. Encourage their art. You know, even, I mean, I was discouraged. I wanted to go to college and get an arts degree. I was told, you can't make it in the world doing that, you know. Of course, now, you know, there's all kinds of actors, singers, artists, craftspeople who do that every day and make it in the world. But that was my parents' belief, is that I needed to go into business, you know, become a secretary, move up, you know, until I became a business person of my own. And, you know, and that's the way I went for quite a while. And then I realized I'm just basically making money for other people. I like my work because if I went to a workplace and I didn't like it, I'd quit. I had no problem with that. You know, there are people who's like, oh, so quit, get you to, oh, I'm scared to do that. Well, that's why you're still there. So I had no problem quitting a job, you know, and finding one that I liked better. Now, it was a little harder when the kids were young and I was a single mom. I stayed with one company a lot longer than I probably should have. And they did me some, you know, mental and emotional damage because they were treating me, you know, like I was this dysfunctional person that I wasn't. And this manager who was in charge of the office was telling all kinds of stories on me, gossiping about me. And of course, people will believe stuff they hear if they're, you know, gullible enough. So this is the way they related to me. And I'm just like, you are supposed to be smart people, you know, intelligent people, and you believe in this crap, you know, whatever. So I finally cut that tie because, you know, I had to get out of that mess. Let's see. Systems of action, increasingly complex combinations of skills which permit a wider or more precision range of movement and more control of the environment. So, like, when you give your kid a tricycle and they learn to ride that, that is developing coordination, large motor, fine motor, because they have to see where they're going and turn the wheel and everything. And when you give a kid a ball and you play ball with the kid, that is developing coordination, and they'll build on that until they get better and better. And, you know, when you give the kid his first little pair of Fisker scissors and have him cutting stuff out of construction paper and gluing it together, you're giving him his first experience of, you know, creating something, a craft, and then they'll build on that as they grow. Handedness. Some of us are right-handed, some of us are left-handed. Used to be, they would try to discourage you from being left-handed. They would try to get you to use your right and train it. My brother's left-handed. They tried to do that to him at first. But then the next teacher was like, it's handedness, you know, you really can't help it. And I had a grandfather that was left-handed. So just accept it. Just accept it. A child is going to use whichever hand feels right to them. If your child is left-handed, buy them left-handed scissors. That's what I did. I have one that's left-handed. We bought him left-handed scissors and stuff. You know, the world is okay for left-handed people nowadays. So don't try to discourage the left hand. And I have one that's pretty ambidextrous. He used both hands and he still kind of does. So, you know, don't try to make your child right-handed if he's not, you know. Let's see. Health and safety. You need to take care of your child so that they're healthy. You need to keep your child safe so that they'll be healthy. That is your responsibility. Now, a lot of parents, they don't take that responsibility. The kid gets sick, oh, whatever. And if they get bad enough, I'll take them to the doctor. And, you know, they don't, you know, keep the child safe. They don't watch the kid. In my neighborhood, there was a baby in a diaper climbing up on top of a car, running out into the street, almost got hit by a car. And it's like, where's the parents? In the house doing God knows what, while their child in a diaper is running around in the neighborhood. That, to me, is just the most unsafe parenting ever. And they should have had every child taken away from them, in my opinion. Because I guarantee you, my child would definitely not be outside by themselves ever until they were at least 10 years old or 100 pounds. That was my rule. Because that's a rule I actually heard from an officer. You know, when they were coming around talking at schools. And so, you know, my kids, they knew. You know, they knew about stranger danger. They got taught this stuff in school. We didn't get taught that. You know, I was actually taught you do whatever an adult tells you. And if I hear that you disobeyed an adult, I'm going to beat your ass. That's what I was told. So that set my generation up, that kind of talk, to be abused by other adults because we felt like we had to do whatever an adult told us to do. You know? So I'm glad that in my children's day, they were taught about stranger danger and, you know, things of that nature and telling if something like that happens to you. So, you know, we've gotten better about keeping our kids safe. Minor illnesses. Okay, every kid is going to have coughs, colds, sniffles, things like that. They make all the, you know, kids' version of the adult version of, you know, things for our colds, our belly aches or whatever. So, you know, take care of your kid, take care of those things so they don't grow to be bigger things. My allergies were a problem, and sometimes I would run out of my allergy medicine. And my mother really couldn't afford my allergy medicine. But instead of substituting that with something, sometimes I would go, you know, for months without allergy medicine. And then I would get ear infections, sinus infections, you know, and then I would have to go to the doctor and get, you know, bigger meds that, you know, she probably couldn't afford either. So, you know, take preventative measures. You know, if your child has an illness, you know, give them the medicine they need so that it doesn't get worse and become a major financial problem. Accidental injuries and deaths. Kids have accidents. That's a fact of life. Because like I said, little people crazy. They don't have no common sense yet. They'll do stupid stuff that will get them hurt. I had a son, we had bunk beds for my oldest and middle child. It had a bed rail, of course, you know, with two slats. Somehow, my oldest son got his leg over one and under one. He could not get his leg back out. He was freaking out, saying how his leg hurt and everything. I banged on that thing, even got a hammer after, and he was saying that was hurting his leg. Could not get that bed rail apart so that I could get him out. So I called his dad, freaking out about it, and his dad's like, okay, I'll come home. Well, he couldn't get it done either, and so he got the hacksaw and cut the rail, you know, it's a wooden rail, where that met the thing, and took it off so that his leg could come out. And I guess it was hurting him. I mean, unless he was just panicking. But there was no red marks on him or anything. So, you know. And then the same child had a toy fire truck which had like a ladder that you could push it with and everything. Also got his leg stuck in the ladder of that fire truck. You know, strange things. You know, and I had another son, and he was running and skidded out on the floor and banged his head, you know, on the china cabinet, and you know, we had to take him in to the hospital. And kids just crazy. They'll do crazy things. So that's just going to be a part of life. But you need to be watching your kids and keep them safe. These all happen. I'm in the next room, you know, when all these things happen. So if I'm, you know, 10 to 20 feet away and this stuff happens, imagine, you know, if you're neglecting your child and leaving him outside by himself, or, you know, it's someone else's place where they're not watching him. You need to keep your child safe, because accidents happen. You know, I had a sister who was riding her bike, and she got hit by a car, and she eventually died from her injuries of being hit by that car. Now, she was older. She was a tween, and she was not obeying the traffic laws. So, of course, in our house, once you became a tween, you could ride around the neighborhood. So she was doing that, but she was breaking the rules in that her friends wanted to go to the gas station across the main road and get a Coke. She was not supposed to do that, and she knew she wasn't supposed to do that. So I'm guessing she was nervous about that, in fact. But she crossed against the light. Her friends went with the light. The light was changing. Nobody was moving, and she decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and go. And so she hurried out into the intersection on her bike. There was like a truck that was turning this way, so she didn't see that on the other side of him was a car. And it came as she came, and they basically hit each other. And she said if she hadn't hit the brakes on her bike when she saw the car, he probably wouldn't have hit her. Because she said she basically, you know, braked right in front of him. But it happened. And she did pass away from her injuries. So you got to impress upon your kids, there's reasons why I tell you something. If I tell you something, that whole just because I said so, that don't fly. Kids don't listen to that crap. They think you're just being mean. You know, you need to tell them why. And like I tell my kid, you know, one time he was like 3 years old, and he went to go see my neighbor across the street, because my neighbor's like, hey, come here, I got something for you. Well, my kid starts to dart out, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, grab his hand. And I said, no, we don't run out in the street. We stop. Haven't I told you? We look both ways. Yeah. And I said, look that way. Look that way. Now look back that way, and then you can go. And then later on, I told him, I said, if you get hit on that road, you get squashed like a bug. I said, I don't want you to get squashed like a bug. Do you want to be squashed like a bug? He's like, no. And one of my friends said, that's horrible. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because it happens. You know, like I said, it happened to someone in my family. She didn't get squashed like a bug, of course, but she did die from her injuries. So it happens. So you need to talk to your kids about reality. Stuff happens, you know, and you're not going to scare them to death unless you know, drill it into them so hard that you're going to scare them to death. But they need to understand that there is a reality. You know, they can get hurt. They need to be careful. They need to think about what they're doing before they do it, you know, because in their world, there's nothing like that going on. It never enters their mind. And stuff like that doesn't happen to them, you know, because I had a kid say that to me well, that'll never happen to me. It's like, no, you don't know that. You can't say that. You might think that because when you're young, you're immortal, of course, in your own mind. So nothing like that would ever happen to you. But stuff does happen. So you need to watch your kids and keep them safe. Explain to them the rules and why the reason is you have that rule. Because that they'll listen to more than because I said so. Because you said so just means you're being mean to them. That's what they think. You need to explain your reasoning. And environment does influence your health. If you're growing up in a poor environment with poor food, poor hygiene, poor cleanliness, that's going to affect your health. So do the right thing by yourself and your kids. Take care of your health, take care of your environment so that you can all be healthy. Exposure to smoking, of course. When you expose a child to smoking, they're more likely to have asthma and allergies. They're more likely to grow up and smoke themselves, which could lead to lung cancer. So, if you love your children, don't smoke around them. Stop smoking. Poverty. Again, if you grow up in an impoverished home, an impoverished neighborhood, you're more likely to be unhealthy because you're not eating right. You might not be sleeping right with sirens and things going on. So you're not going to be as healthy as you could be if you were more affluent. So, poverty does affect a person's outcomes. There's a section of society that doesn't want to believe that's true. Well, they have all the opportunities, same as me. Well, no, they always don't, because they might not have a support system. They might not have a vehicle, transportation to go to a job and things like that. So they don't. Quit kidding yourself on that one. Exposure to lead. Lead is dangerous. It can affect their blood. It can affect their brain. It can stay in the brain. It can make them have a lower IQ. So make sure you're not using lead paint, and keep them away from anything lead. Homelessness. Unfortunately, there are homeless children. So they have problems keeping in school. They're having problems just eating and having clothes to wear. So, if that's a problem, concentrating on your schoolwork and things like that is not a priority. Just where your next meal's coming from is the main priority there. Now, they've gotten better about, having shelters for families and keeping kids, off the street. But there's still some work to be done there. Excuse me. Cognitive development, and that is when how your mind thinks and grows, how you develop as a person. The preoperational stage, we're going to go back to some Piagetian theory. In Piaget's theory, the second major stage of cognitive development, in which children become more sophisticated in their use of symbolic thought, but are not yet able to use logic. So, you can pretend that a block is a hammer, or like the shoe is the car, but you can't quite logic things out. Like you're still going to think this snake that they made out of clay is bigger than the ball, even though the ball has actually more clay in it, because it looks longer to them, which to them means it's bigger. So they ain't quite got the logic down yet, but they're working on it. Advances of preoperational thought. Advances in symbolic thought are accompanied by a growing understanding of space, causality, identities, categorization, and number. Some of these understandings have roots in infancy and toddlerhood. Others begin to develop in early childhood, but are not fully achieved until middle childhood, when they can think more about others and think more abstractly. Because, in the beginning, you're here and now in this reality, and that's all you know. The brain hasn't developed enough to have abstract thought yet. The symbolic function. I want ice cream, announces a child, age 4, trudging indoors from the hot, dusty backyard. She has not seen anything that triggered this desire. No open freezer door, no television commercial. She no longer needs this kind of sensory cue to think about something. She remembers ice cream is cold and tastes good, and she purposefully seeks it out. So, she doesn't need prompting anymore. You know, she feels hot and she knows that would feel good and taste good, so that's what she's asking for. So it's an advance as childhood goes on. The more, you know, abstract thinking can happen. Let's see. Not worry about that. Spatial thinking. Kids are kind of all over the place. When you can develop spatial thinking, that helps you to be able to represent things. It helps you to put things together. You know, even, you know where you are in space. Because some kids are like bumping into walls, bumping around, you know, and I say, do you just not even realize where you are in space? So, you know, the growth of representational thinking enables children to make more accurate judgments about spatial relationships. By 19 months, children understand that a picture is a representation of something else. Most children do not reliably grasp the relationships between pictures, maps, or scale models and the objects or space that they represent. This was the age by which Yanni began painting recognizable forms. So, again, that's something we don't start out with. That has to develop. And I'm going to leave you on that note. And hopefully this has helped you to understand a little bit more about why you do what you do. That's all for now. Until next time.